Hello, everyone. Welcome to the beginning of the week here. This is the 50th dispatch, according to the number of dispatches that I'm finding in my folder. This is number 50. It's a lot of dispatches. So it got cloudy. It was sunny. Now it's cloudy. It was cold, but it was sunny. Now it's cloudy. And I've got something to read. But before I do that, I keep on mentioning this book. I'm into it, as they say. The Master and His Emissary, The Divided Brain, and the Making of the Western World, by Ian McGilchrist. Excuse me. And part of what he talks about is two kinds of knowing: the way the left hemisphere knows something, the way the right hemisphere knows something. In the left hemisphere, knowledge is more explicit. It's like, it's language, it's facts, it's things, it's knowledge that we look up, Wikipedia or a book. It's explicit knowledge. In the right hemisphere, there's a term. I can't think of it. Right, it just slips away. The right hemisphere trades in, I was thinking trades. The right hemisphere, the kind of knowing, is implicit, not explicit. Implicit. It's metaphor. It's knowing something that is felt. It's a more intimate kind of knowing. And it's like it's clarifying something in my head. It feels sort of like growing up, becoming an adult, and discovering that the stories, the fairy tales, are actually real, more real than the rest, more real. Like, I feel like we're in some strange period of time, actually, right now, the way things are changing, the way things are unfolding. It's like, what is going on? It's like, oh, wow, like the fairy tale is like opening up, and it's like, what's happening in our world? It's like, what is going on? Anyway, wanted to share that. I mean, I don't even know if I'm making any sense. Trying to get a handle on it, really. I'm trying to write about it. And anyway, yeah, implicit, explicit, implicit knowledge, knowing. I find it fortifying, actually, as a painter. The primacy of implicit knowledge, the knowing that's nonverbal. Okay, so here I've got the reading group. We are working this week. We're reading something from Linda Nochlin. The Linda Nochlin Reader, Women Artists. It's a collection edited by Maura Riley. And we're looking at Mary Cassatt's modernity. And I thought I would read some of it because it's really good. And here's this painting here. You can see it'll be in a color reproduction is in the PDF. So I'm just going to read a section. It's not short. She wrote this in 1999. Mary Cassatt's Lady at the Tea Table. 1883 to 1885, is one of the most remarkable American portraits of the 19th century. A subtle combination of strength and fragility. The painting represents Mrs. Mary Dickinson Riddle, Cassatt's first cousin, once removed. The sitter, who had a reputation as a great beauty, in fact, rejected the work, apparently because she and her daughters felt it was not flattering enough. And indeed, it is not a flattering portrait, in the sense that John Singer Sargent's almost contemporary portrait of Lady Agnew of Lucknow, 1892, is. The pose is far more rigid, the costume and decor more severe, the telltale signs of age, especially about the mouth and chin, are observed, if not exaggerated. The wonderfully quirky nose's sharp tip is enhanced by a dab of white highlight. The horizontal flare of the nostril is anything but classic in its idiosyncratic structure. What Mrs. Riddle has is character, something different from the slightly vapid elegance of Sargent's sitter, as it is from the explosive primitivism of an almost contemporary portrait like Vincent van Gogh's La Mer Roulin. Can I say that? I don't know how to say it. La Mer Roulin? I don't know. 1889. Cassatt has been criticized for paying attention to the lives of only a very restricted circle of women, a privileged circle, like that represented by Mrs. Mary Dickinson Riddle. Women who could afford to spend their days enjoying genteel accomplishments, mutual entertainment, and mild leisure activities. Women who did not have to work and who, on the whole, did not engage in the arts on a professional rather than an amateur level. Cassatt herself was divided about this. She aspired unswervingly toward professionalism and the serious work it entailed, but nevertheless honored the feminine sphere of activity, those spaces of femininity, so aptly named by Griselda Pollock, that private sphere of family, friends, and decorous sociability, which engaged most women of Cassatt's time and class. Let's just go dark. Sorry about that. I don't know how to adjust it still. The taking of tea with elegant accoutrements seems to have attracted her more than once, as the painting The Cup of Tea, 1880, demonstrates. Perhaps it seemed paradigmatic to her of that other kind of work, or more accurately, art, that leisure class women engaged in addition to running fairly complicated large-scale households, the art of organizing domestic ceremonies. Tea is here represented as a sort of ritual occasion in the feminine, what Yeats has referred to as a ceremony of innocence. As such, presiding over the tea table may be seen as a major instance of what the great modern novelist Dorothy Richardson, in her Roman Fleuve, Pilgrimage, the first volume of which was published in 1915, has called women's crowning achievement the creation of atmospheres. This is Dorothy Richardson, who was a novelist, came out with a novel in 1915 called Pilgrimage, and she called women's crowning achievement the creation of atmospheres. Like Cassatt, Richardson both yearned for women's emancipation and at the same time honored and cherished her domestic role as creative director and maintainer of the spaces of femininity. Miriam, the heroine of Pilgrimage, in conversation with an enlightened male advocate of women's emancipation, states, "There's no emancipation to be done. Women are emancipated." "Prove it, Miriam," her male suffragist friend challenges. "I can," Miriam replies. through their preeminence in art. This is a quote now from Miriam. Through their preeminence in art, the art of making atmospheres. It's as big an art as any other. Most women can exercise it for reasons by fits and starts. The best women work at it the whole of the time. Not one man in a million is aware of it. It's like air within the air. It may be deadly, so is the bad art of men. At its best, it is absolutely life-giving and not soft, very hard and stern and austere in its beauty. Just as with art, it's one of the answers to the question about women in art. It's all there. It doesn't show like men's art. There's no drama or publicity. It's hard and exacting, needing the maximum of detachment and control. And people have to learn or be taught to see it. It's the end of her quote. Yet Miriam, who is really the authorial voice in the novel, like Cassatt, somehow reveals the paradoxical nature of her defense of women as atmosphere makers versus art makers by admitting at the end of this passage, lots of women hold back, just as men do, from exacting careers. I do. I don't want to exercise the feminine art. And later in an article, Richardson articulates that divided position vis-a-vis women's domestic role, which so unites her with Cassatt, by pointing out that the demands of atmosphere making offer precisely the greatest obstacles to women's creative achievement. So here's the quote. Art demands what to women current civilization won't give. There is for a Dostoevsky riding against time on the corner of a crowded kitchen table a greater possibility of detachment than for a woman artist, no matter how placed. Neither motherhood nor the more continuously exacting and indefinitely expansive responsibilities of even the simplest housekeeping can so effectively hamper her as the human demands, besieging her wherever she is for an inclusive awareness from which men, for good or ill, are exempt. I'm going to read that again. Art demands what to women current civilization won't give. There is for a Dostoevsky riding against time on the corner of a crowded kitchen table a greater possibility of detachment than for a woman artist, no matter how placed. Neither motherhood nor the more continuously exacting and indefinitely expansive responsibilities of even the simplest housekeeping can so effectively hamper her as the human demands, besieging her wherever she is for an inclusive awareness from which men, for good or ill, are exempt. The article, published under the rubric Women in the Arts, is entitled, significantly, Some Notes on the Eternally Conflicting Demands of Humanity, she has in parentheses, not femininity, and art. In a sense, one might speculate that Cassatt, in the painting Lady at the Tea Table, sees her sitter's vocation, manipulating the tea things, pouring, arranging her clothing and decor, running her household with a sure grasp, a keen aesthetic sense, and long years of experience of building a seemly and even exquisite atmosphere as an analog to her own task of painting a portrait, constructive, subtle, full of choices and decisions, a formal work as well as a social occasion. And indeed, it is through the knowing manipulation of the formal means of her art, the art of painting, that Cassatt has made this portrait into a masterpiece, not merely a likeness. Like Poussin's great self-portrait in the Louvre, 1650, it is also a painting about art and the making of art. Like Poussin, Cassatt sets off her sitter's head in a series of enframements, which both rivets it in place and calls attention to the relation between the rectangles within the painting, one of which is indeed a framed picture itself, and the rectangular shape of the canvas support. She goes on. It's very good. If you don't know Linda Nochlin's writing, I recommend it. That's it. That's it. Probably went on too long. Hope you're all well. Hope you're making stuff. Make stuff. Make stuff. I think it's gonna be really important. What a time. Make stuff. And if we can just show up as when we make stuff. All right. I'll send this out to you. Take care, everyone. Be well. Bye-bye.